Missed it. Rebound, Nebraska's. Wooster's got it. Dribbles out of a mess. Brings it across the timeline, right side. One arms the pass to Williams. Attacks the goal all the way in. Puts it up and in. Unbelievable. All-American play. Right to
Day by day. Day by day. We get better and better. We get better and better. Till we can't beat beat. Till we can't beat beat. Boom, beat, beat. Boom, beat, beat.
Hey, welcome in to Day by Day. I'm with Andrew and Mike. I'm James. How are you guys doing?
Not too bad. Hello.
We keep winning, so I'm happy.
Keep winning. But are you staying warm? It's a little cold here in Lincoln today.
Weather check.
And they canceled school tomorrow.
They never cancel school in Illinois, so I'm in school. My district's in school. We're supposed to get like 5 inches tomorrow, but we're going to school apparently. So
let's talk about this. Let's talk about this right now. So here's the thing. It hasn't snowed yet. We've had some flurries. I'm looking out at a dark window right now. It's not snowing. There's nothing sticking to the ground. And I knew. So my kids got out of school and they're like, they're going to cancel tomorrow. And then the other one is like, they're not going to cancel tomorrow. And I'm like, we're going to get half an inch of snow and they're going to cancel tonight. And at 7:13 p.m., I got a text from Lincoln Public Schools. There will be no school tomorrow for LPS students. So we do not have school, even though there is no snow. And I don't think it's going to snow. And then get this, like 15 minutes ago, the University of Nebraska canceled classes. It took an act of God for them to cancel classes when I was in college. So no school tomorrow.
Hey, thoughts and prayers. Lincoln, James.
That's one thing I've noticed. So I taught in Ralston Public Schools for 5 years, and now I've taught in Illinois, northern Chicago suburbs this is my 5th year here. And I've noticed, I feel like our snow removal is pretty similar. I would say Illinois definitely does a better job than Nebraska. But I would still consider it to be pretty comparable. Illinois districts are very hesitant to cancel school. They drag their feet and do whatever they can. And it feels like Nebraska districts are like, they're pulling the trigger as fast as they can. So it's an interesting dynamic for sure.
We just don't want to deal with it anymore. I think they've gotten to the point.
I guess.
I don't know what generation is in charge, to be honest. Whoever it is, they're like, we're done with it. We're done with the mystery and the waiting in the morning. We want to go to bed knowing we don't have to go anywhere in the morning. So, hey, more power to you if you can do that. All right, so we got a packed show. We're going to talk Husker basketball. Want to talk a little net. Brad Underwood, Illinois coach, made some interesting comments. Last week we didn't talk Matt Rhule's presser on February 1st. Maybe a little bit we did. I have some questions for you guys. Andrew was at the Nebraska-Washington basketball game. Want to get into that, and maybe we'll get into some food stuff at Memorial Stadium. But first, as always, you can find us on characterchronicles.com, all the platforms. Subscribe, especially on YouTube. Helps more people find us. Like the show, share, comment, all the things. We appreciate you tuning in. All right, guys. Nebraska is on a heater. Nebraska basketball. Mike, you said they keep winning, so you're happy. How are you guys feeling about the last? We got 7 games left, right? 7 games, I think. What are your reactions to Ohio State and how that game went down? I thought it was one of their better games of the year, to be honest.
Andrew, you want to start?
Yeah. I watched it on replay a little bit. I was following along on Twitter. I'm a little of that superstition too, because I'm out here on the West Coast. Games are a little awkward, sometimes hard to watch. So I have been just recording it, and then James will text me and say, "Don't even watch." I didn't see all the blowouts this year I've missed because I just have said, "Okay, James says don't watch." So it's time,
it's like I'm in the future.
Yeah.
I'm in the future for you. It's like you just don't come to the future. Stay where you're at. Stay there.
So this time though, so Sunday we go to church. We about half hour away, and we go do our shopping, Costco, and all that. So this time I'm like, I'm just gonna follow on Twitter in church. I'm checking Twitter. I'm keeping up with it. We're hanging in there. So a little superstition is like, I should turn it off and wait till I get home and then watch the rest, or should I just follow the rest of this thing on Twitter, which I did. So no, it seems like, again, kind of a slow start. Sounds like some rough officiating early in the game or first half. But again, what we really like about this team is that they adjust. The coaching is, I saw that firsthand in Washington, or against Washington, is that the coaching adjustments, and then the team can really kick it in a different gear in the second half when they need to. So I saw a little bit of that against Ohio State.
I feel like offensively they started fast, but you're right. The fouls got a little ticky tack. Juwan Gary got in foul trouble. Actually, I think Rhule got in foul trouble at some point, maybe not first half, but second half. And so we just got out of a rhythm. And then really when Gary left the game, Nebraska stopped going to the bucket. And that's when things kind of bogged down in the first half.
Yep.
And then they come out in the second half, they put up 45 points. So Mike, I'm curious, how'd you feel about the game?
First off, Andrew, I respect the commitment to the grind, check in the game during church. That's you get mad respect from me for that. So the entire time I felt like we played super good defense, and Ohio State was just making these incredible shots that the whole time I was like, are you kidding me? Like, we have a hand in the face. We're closing out on these shots well, all this different stuff. And they're just making these 30-foot, just insane 3-point shots. So I felt like the whole time, we're playing good. And I was just like, keep pushing. Even though they took the lead there right before half and stuff like that, I was like, I feel like we're playing better basketball then, and it's more sustainable. And we turned out, obviously, putting the pedal down in the second half and taking care of business. Bruce Thornton was, I think, averaging just over 17 points a game this season. We held him to 9 points. Micah Parrish went off for 30. It seemed like he couldn't miss, but I tell you what, I'm concerned for the Burke injury here for the next few weeks, whatever. It kind of seems like a week's thing rather than a day's thing. I think he brings something to it. He stretches the floor and spreads the defense out, but he also brings a lot of intangibles to the group with his emotional intensity that I think those guys are going to miss on the court. So I'm hoping it's a combination of other guys kind of stepping up in that role, but he is a free spirit out. I love the way Burke plays basketball. He just seems like a free spirit out there and does his thing. So someone's going to definitely have to step up emotionally to kind of be that type of juice guy on the court for them here until he comes back.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, I love the way he plays. He does have some lazy moments, which bother me, maybe a lazy pass or doesn't box out, but what he provides in the way that he does it. No one else on the team does it that way. Right. I mean, I don't think he's Casey level in terms of the emotion and the passion he brings, but you can tell, I mean, he's only a sophomore, right? So, I think he can get to that level in a year or two where the crowd will just feed on him. And it might not always be a 30-foot 3-pointer. It's probably not going to be with him, but diving for a ball, making a great defensive play, or maybe it's hitting a three in the corner. I'm not a huge fan of him shooting a lot. I know he's shooting at a pretty decent clip, about 31% or so, but he just does a lot of stuff, a lot of intangibles.
Yeah.
There's I don't know if this is the right word, but volatility to his game that I like. Yeah. It just feels like you're riding this emotional roller coaster every time you watch him. But he plays with so much passion. I feel he honestly might be my favorite guy to watch on our team.
Really?
It's not because it's not because he's the best. He's clearly not the best guy on our team, but I just I play some pickup basketball, and I feel like there's maybe some comps to my game to his where I'm shooting shots that I shouldn't shoot, and I'm getting my teammates hyped. That's the kind of guy I feel like I am a little bit. I'm not the
so
best.
Burke's like
sure.
Burke's like a 30-something dad
He
out
re-
there on
he-
the court.
that like thinks he's still in his glory years and pumping up his teammates. Like I just love it. I love the way he plays.
So he was
I mean-
listed. I saw day to day today, but I mean, I would count him out obviously for Thursday.
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe it's 2 games and you split those 2 and he comes back. You're not hurting too bad, hopefully, but that'd be best case scenario.
If he's going to sit out a game, I'm kind of glad he's sitting out the next big game at home and not a road game. Like if we were going on the road to play at sleepy Penn State, on a whatever night that game is, like I'd actually be a little more worried because of the intensity he brings to the court, right? So I hope that he can come back for, Penn State, Northwestern. I'm getting these games out of order right now, but
Yeah,
I like that we're playing at home, so it worries me less. But like you said, Mike, like Morgan's going to have to step up in a way. I mean, Gary will. He didn't play his best game, got into quick foul trouble. To be honest, I don't think that he should have been in foul trouble because a couple of the whistles on him were not fouls. And then probably Cale Jacobson. He doesn't play the way Burke plays, but he's kind of that next man in the rotation who will play down low because he has to.
Yeah. Morgan had a good game against Maryland first time around too. So
he did.
Whether they game plan for him or not, or what, can you replicate that?
And they should have beat Maryland on the road.
Yeah. I think like Maryland's got a pretty good front court with, they roll a couple big guys out there. Like I think we're probably going to see more Morgan and Mia on the court together than we've seen before. So we'll see. I mean, maybe, I don't know. I think Morgan's going to kind of have to shift from that like inside post guy to maybe covering the 4 a little bit more than he has in the past. We'll see. I don't know. I could be completely wrong with that, but like, I don't know who's going to kind of shift into that forward spot out. Gary's going to be there, but who else is going to be kind of playing that Burke role? I don't know if they have that strong guy to put in the rotation there with him. So we'll see. I don't know. We'll see.
No, yeah, it'll be really interesting. And maybe they throw a wrench in things and just go small, right?
Yeah.
And try to play that way.
That's
I'm looking forward to see. Yeah.
If we did bold predictions, I'm going to say Hoiberg goes double figures in this one.
Heyo.
He brings that energy that Burke brings. So,
I mean, I'm glad that the announcers actually highlighted that during the game, that he's not a volume scorer, but his efficiency is way up and he's shooting at a higher percentage from the free throw line, from 3 point. I mean, last year, I remember Sam just struggled at even the free throw line, and like his shot has just gotten so much better. His form is so much better. I think he's not pressing as much. He doesn't rush as much. And so when he gets his chances, man, he takes advantage of it, puts the ball in the bucket. It's like, what more can you ask for him? The guy that he's probably the top 1 or 2 defenders on the team. He's probably the top hustler. If you get 5-6 points out of him, that's icing on the cake. Okay, let's stick with basketball. Andrew, you were at Washington. Just curious what your experience was like. Saw you had to take the ferry to the game from where you live, but you also ate like purple sauerkraut. Right? Was it sauerkraut?
Geez.
Yeah.
Was it purple? Was it sauerkraut?
Yeah, it was sauerkraut. So
okay.
Yeah, fun experience. Took my 10, 11-year-old son. It's about a 2-hour drive from where we're at. That includes 30 minutes on a ferry to get kind of across the water to Seattle. So we actually spent the night in Seattle. We didn't plan on it. We were going to go down and back, and we were getting snow here. We actually had 2 snow days last week. It's crazy because my street was like slushy, but there's also like a quarter mile away, there's mountains. And so people that live up in the hills get like a foot of snow and then they can't go anywhere. So the schools all got called off. Actually, school was called off the day after the game. So we stayed in a hotel.
Nice.
That night in Seattle, and then just took our time coming back. But yeah, it was a good time. Washington's it was a sleepy crowd. I listened to the morning break, and they were talking like, oh, it looked like there was 500 people there. Washington's website listed 6,000. I don't think it was 6,000, but it could have been 3. But it's just
There's
it's
no
an
way.
odd it's an odd venue. It's dark in there, and everything's just purple and like gray, so there's just no color, which Husker fans popped out, which was really cool to see. I'd say there was maybe 300 Husker fans. But yeah, fun game, fun atmosphere. Kind of an interesting story. I met a guy in the parking lot. I'm paying for the parking, and this older gentleman wearing Husker red. He's like, "Are you paying for parking?" He's like, "Yep." We get to talking. He's like, "Where are you from?" I tell him. He starts telling me where he's from, and I'm like, "I feel like I've heard this story before." Ends up being this same guy that I struck up a conversation with at the volleyball game. He lives like 4 hours away from Seattle.
No way.
Yeah, the
Wow.
same exact guy. So I don't think he realized that I didn't tell him that we had already spoke, but I definitely knew by his
He
story.
didn't pick up on it?
No, I don't think so.
That's crazy.
He's
That
lived
is
out here
crazy.
since the 70s, but diehard Husker fan. He went to UNL. So yeah, the fan experience is really kind of a cool thing. Weird being that far from Nebraska and then just kind of rubbing your normal,
That's awesome.
Nebraska people. One funny story at the end of the game, there was a lady in front of me with her son. I thought she was paying attention to the game, but Hoiberg is literally doing his post game with the media crew. This lady gets up with her coat on. She looks back at me and she goes, "Is it over?" I said, "Yeah, it's over." She goes, "Oh, I thought there was 4 quarters." I was like,
Oh,
"No,
no.
there's 2 halves." Anyway, she was wearing Washington gear, but then she actually is a UNL grad, and but she wasn't sleeping. And like Hoiberg's doing the interview, and she's asking me if it's the game's over. And people were like, the place was cleared out by that point, so that was odd.
Wow. I thought they did
yeah.
4 quarters.
Yeah, but
That's
yeah, okay.
That's
So-
you
so
should have looked at her and said, "That's the Supersonics, ma'am."
Yeah.
See if she
Yeah. The food. I had to try something. I wanted to try something. What was, what's the Nebraska, what's the runza for Washington?
Yep.
I wouldn't say there's anything special. Everything was kind of called the Husky burger, the Husky dog. It was just kind of lame like that. I did go with a brat. It was like a spicy brat with purple gold sauerkraut, and it was terrible. Like I could taste the food dye in the sauerkraut.
Oh,
yuck.
I ate it because it's all I had eaten during the day, but I think I texted James. I was like, "This should have been in the trash." So Washington, you need to do away
Come on,
with
Washington.
the sauerkraut.
Do better. Oh man. All right. Well, I'm glad you got to go
Yeah,
to
fun time.
volleyball and basketball. That's fun. You got to go to both.
Yeah.
All right.
Little
let's talk.
basketball analysis though. Being there live, the energy from the team was night and day. First quarter, they were slow. They didn't seem super engaged, like they even wanted to be there. I was starting to think of our pod when Mike said, "Okay, perfect kind of sleepy atmosphere for a letdown."
Yep.
It definitely felt that way. And then second half was just, it was a blast just seeing them come out, just a completely different team. So
They did. They turned on the Jets and it was
Yeah.
fun to watch them. Yeah, I remember, even I don't know if you watched the post game, but Hoiberg talked to the TV crew who was doing the guy that was doing the post game, and Hoiberg said, "Well," he said, "I kind of got into him at halftime, and
Yeah.
I don't know what that means for Fred. Like he's such a mild mannered dude, but did he say like, gosh darn it, let's go? I don't know, but." He said, "I got into him a little bit," and I believe it because that first half was like, "Man, you sleeping?" Like what you did against was it Illinois the previous game? Like that doesn't matter, or Oregon.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't matter if you blow this game.
Yeah.
So, and they came out with their hair on fire. They played awesome.
I did watch the post game. We went down closer to the court, and I was yelling. I was still yelling top of my lungs. I actually had a Washington person tell me to be quiet or they may have to kick us out because I was trying to get my voice on TV. Like I was obnoxious. This was my first live basketball game in quite a while, and I'm kind of a quiet guy.
You were feeling it.
I was obnoxious. My voice was kind of gone by the end of it, so it was fun.
Way to go. All right, let's talk net. It's kind of just my every year around this time. is when I get my boxers in a bunch about the net. And I put out on Twitter this morning that I understand that it's a sorting tool. It's not a ranking system. It's not the BCS for basketball. But I still have to wonder what the net is sorting. Is it good from bad? Is it good from average from bad to worse? I mean, there's 364 teams in Division I basketball, and we have 4 quadrants, right? Those are some big buckets, if you will, for our sorting. And so here was the example I put out. I didn't do like a blind resume thing. I was like, here, I'm showing all my cards. I'm comparing Pitt and Nebraska. Pitt has 1 quad 1 win. They're 3-5 on the road. They have loss margins of 29 and 33 points in 2 games. Their wins above bubble, the lower the better. They're at 56, and their net is 46. Nebraska has 5 quad 1 wins. They're 4-5 on the road. They have loss margins of 28, 36, and 37, so 1 more game. But their wins above bubble is at 38, and they're 2 spots behind Pitt at 48. Totally random, right? Probably not a big enough data sample, but I feel like we see this every year where at this point in the season, teams don't move. It's like you kind of are what you are, and a part of that is that what was on the front of your jersey, right? The name that that's on your jersey that you started with at the beginning of this, or that's why you started where you started at the beginning of the year. So, I'd love to see a transparent model that helps us understand where teams are and what the NCAA selection committee actually uses. I get they use the net. I get that they use BPI. They use KenPom. The net is the one that's very nebulous to me. It's like, we don't actually know what your formula is. Why is Illinois still at 10 or 14?
Yeah. Oregon, I think.
Why
still.
Oregon top 25, maybe 30? And you're like, Oregon's lost like 7 of 8 games. So it is a mystery to me. Yeah. And I wish we had some more transparency with, whatever the algorithm you want to use, whatever the metrics you want to, that's fine. Tell us, but then tell us how it works.
How did those, James, Pitt, Nebraska, how they match up in like KenPom or BPI?
I just looked. We're like 4 or 5 spots higher in KenPom than Pitt.
Okay.
And Pitt's had a decent win, but it was 1, right? I think they beat Duke. But 1 quad 1 win. So it's like, eventually, to me, and I think, Mike, you and I have interacted around this on Twitter, is like, eventually wins have to start mattering, right?
Yeah.
Nebraska has 2 more wins than Ohio State and a head-to-head, and they're about 22 spots below Ohio State. So I get it. The metrics we love to say the metrics love them. What does that mean? Because games are not played with metrics, they're played on a basketball court, and you either win games or you lose games. And I get I think what also hurts is, man, you lose a game by 33 points. Like, it seems like it kind of ruined Nebraska. And I get that, but should that 1 or 3 in this case, should it be weighted that heavily?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Who'd you lose
Mike,
to?
curious what you think.
I actually went on today because I wanted to, you talked about transparency of a model. I wanted to kind of see what was out there about the net rankings. And I mean, I don't think anyone's shocked to find out that when I was on the NCAA's website, you can't find anything. And
there's nothing.
There was a little segment in there about like, what is the net ranking and how does it, and it basically said it's a model to blah, blah, blah. It was like super vague and boring and like not descriptive of it all of what it does. So I think that plays into their hand. Like, they don't, if they don't have to explain it explicitly, then they can't show the weaknesses of the model and why it's wrong. I think most people respect KenPom as kind of the number one predictive model. And he has us higher than Pitt. So, every model is going to be deficient, obviously, like it's not going to be perfect. And it's just interesting to though, like clearly that net model, like their metrics are not right. There's something about it that doesn't quantify what happens on the basketball court. So it's interesting, but the scary part is like, that is a metric that is used to determine seeding and who gets in and who gets out. And that's what's scary to me. Not that the model's like potentially broken. It's like, that's actually a respected thing that the NCAA uses to help them on Selection Sunday.
Yep. That's the thing. And they created it, right? It is correct me if I'm wrong, it's the NCAA evaluation tool, right?
Correct.
That's what the N stands for. I mean, they created it. I'm looking at BPI on ESPN, which is another metric that the committee uses. So sticking with the same two teams, Pitt's actually 41st there and Nebraska's 44th. I've heard this a lot on Twitter is Nebraska's strength of schedule is killing them. It's actually not. Pitt's strength of schedule is 80th according to BPI, and Nebraska's 44th. Yeah. So again, even with something like that, where I usually like, if I really want to know, like, okay, where does my team stack up? I'm usually going to Ken Pom or Torvik or something like that. So I'm like looking at BPI. I'm like, okay, NCAA selection committee, you're also using BPI, and where's the transparency, right? You're giving me a power index and an offensive ranking and a defensive ranking. How did you get there? How does a team that's 14-9, how can they be above? They're one slot above Memphis that's 20-4. I get the conference. I get that. Yeah. They're ahead of Nebraska. They're ahead of Utah State, who's 21-3. New Mexico, that's 20-4, right? Vanderbilt, who's 17-6 and in the SEC. So again, it's like, I don't want to be critical. I want to understand. And I just think a lot of these tools, they don't provide us, like you said, Mike, there's nothing out there. Like I've been searching for 2 to 3 years on a good explanation of what net is. And I've heard what the bracketologists say. Oh, it's a sorting tool. What are they sorting? Bad apples from good ones? It seems like they're all kind of mixed together. I don't get
where is the line of sorting go from bad to good, right? Like,
and that's the thing, like, is there really that big of a difference between team 30 and team 31? Well, apparently it's one whole quad. There's 364 teams and we put them into 4 buckets. Yeah. We need to solve this problem. Okay. Let's move on to football. I just needed to get that off my chest. Let's talk about football. Curious if you guys watched Matt Rhule's presser on February 1st. Or if you caught any highlights from it. I'm really curious what you think about at the very end. It's like he just dropped this bomb. Like, Dylan's been trying to lead the receiving room, and last year in winter workouts, he had 5 guys showing up. I don't know if you realize this, but there are way more than 5 receivers on a football team. So where were the rest of them? Why weren't they there? And to me, that kind of told me everything I needed to know about our offense last year. And I think sometimes we just think, oh man, it's like scheme, coaching, that's a part of it. Personnel. Okay, man, what about relationships? What about the way people relate on a team? I mean, Mike, you're a coach. I think you get that. It doesn't mean if you have, you can have great relationships and suck because you're not talented, but it's probably very difficult at that level when you are not in sync. And you don't have to be best buddies, but when you do not have good rapport and a kind of a good working relationship with your teammates, it's hard to be successful. So that really stood out to me, and curious what you think about Dylan's leadership development going into year 2.
It's definitely interesting. Like it makes you raise your eyebrows. I will say that it's 100% a statement that he was directing at people, and it was clearly to get a message across. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious. I think it's partially at Dylan. I think it's partially at the receiver room. And I think it also is partially at the offensive coordinator too, to make sure that this happens. Like I have no doubt in my mind that Dana Holgorsen is going to make sure it happens this offseason type of thing. But I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know, like without us being there every single day, like I'm not going to come in here with a hot take and say Dylan can't lead. Like we're not in
100%.
the locker room every day. We don't know what those interactions look like. Everything I've heard about him as a quarterback is he has an amazing work ethic and he's doing everything to get himself on the field. And I think part of his development as a college quarterback and hopefully into an NFL quarterback is not only like developing himself as an athlete, but also figuring out how to make others better around him. And that's a skill, especially with the portal, especially with, everyone kind of treating this free agent type of college football now. Like everyone's just trying to get theirs type of thing. But like there also is the element to winning games of like trying to bring others up with you as you go. So I think Rhule's trying to push some buttons and maybe call out some receivers too to step up a little bit, to get themselves in a good position going into the fall.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, I think it says more about the receiving room than it does Dylan. I think, and I've heard some media kind of latch onto it this week is like, this is an indictment on Rhule. He's a freshman coming in right at the beginning of his tenure here. So there's a lot of trust to be built. Let's not, discredit the fact too that he like flew 5 of them down to Texas and paid for hotels and, to work out with them. So it's not like the effort wasn't there. And then you look at the culture of that room. Your wide receiver coach is gone. Nair didn't seem like his head was in it all season, towards the end especially. And then he kind of leaves a little bit awkwardly, it seemed like. Jalen Lloyd, you thought Lloyd and Raiola were had a connection or close. He's leaving. Malachi Coleman left. So some of those, there's 3 guys right there in that receiving room that they're not Huskers. They're moving on to something else. So yeah, new coach, new culture, new players, another year under his belt. I think it's going to look a lot different.
Yeah, I didn't take it as an indictment on him at all. I do agree with you, Mike, that Rhule's talking to a lot of different groups of people, and especially to Dylan. I think, and I wrote about this at Through These Gates, kind of the burden of leadership is you have to lead when no one's watching, right? No one's watching the early morning, cold morning. I mean, it's going to be wind chill -20 tomorrow morning. And those guys are going to be in that facility throwing the ball around at 6:00. If they don't show up, that's not on Dylan. But to be a leader, you take that burden on yourself and you're like, man, I take the blame when someone doesn't do their job. And I give credit when someone does their job. And I think, man, doing that as a 19, 20-year-old, like, takes guts. But Rhule's right. Like, he's got to do it. And he has to do it for Nebraska to be successful. But I do think, Andrew, to your point, with the new actually, Mike, you said this too. Dana Holgorsen's going to make sure this happens. You have a new wide receiver coach who I think is darn sure going to make this happen, make sure it happens. I think you're going to see a much more cohesive team. It's going to feel, the offense is going to feel like a team. I liked what Banks and Nair brought to the table, but at times as a fan, it just felt like this was like, okay, you guys are like a 1-year lease and you're trying to get to the league. I'm not saying that was the motive. I don't know. I'm not going to say that was their intention. It just felt like it. It kind of looked like it. And then you wondered about, the other receivers who weren't playing, and they weren't playing, even though they had played the year before. Like, okay, are you guys in this? Is this your team? And it turns out it wasn't. And they moved on, and that's fine. So I'm hoping that we'll have a much more cohesive unit, but it starts now. And again, it's like, okay, if something doesn't go right, it doesn't mean it's the quarterback's fault, but he does have to take the responsibility, because that's what leaders do. It sucks, but that's the burden. And I think that's what Rhule was trying to communicate.
Yeah. And to your point, Oh, go ahead, Andrew. Sorry.
I was just going to say, just that interesting observation. Who are you seeing out in public at Husker events on this high school, basketball tour? It's Emmett and Dylan, which I think's a pretty cool sign too.
I think that's cool.
There's your offensive leaders right there, and a decent age gap is, in terms of when they came into the program. So, but they're out there front and center, kind of leading the PR charge and all of that. So
I think we're we're entering a time where college football is so much more transactional than it's ever been, from a roster standpoint, unfortunately. And to your point, James, I think that, teams are going to thrive when they figure out how to make those transactional roster acquisitions, how you are acquisitions, excuse me, how do you make those into a team and not just putting together a roster, So, that'll be I think that's kind of where Rhule's coming from, is how do we take all these pieces? It's basically almost a completely different wide receiver room next year than it was this year again for 2 years in a row. How does Dylan step up into that role and blend those pieces together rather than I'm throwing to 5 different guys out here? It's got to be a unit rather than just a bunch of pieces.
I mean, that's so in the post I wrote for today, I even said, as a fan, what we can do is we just depersonalize everything. And we just think it's like EA Sports college football, where it's hey, get me a roster.
Right.
Give me NIL. Give me the right play. I want the Bill Walsh playbook from Stanford in 1995. Give me that playbook. I will dominate on dynasty mode if I just have that. That's not how real life works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Relationships are so important. And it's not I'm not talking about a fluffy thing. It's just the way that people work together, the way that people and personalities melt together. I think Phil Jackson, think of the personalities that he had to manage on those great Bulls teams. That's why he's one of the greatest basketball coaches of all time. I'm sure the triangle offense is incredible. I'm sure it is. But that's not why Phil Jackson was so great. When you think of the personalities. I know the Chiefs just lost the Super Bowl, but Andy Reid is an incredible offensive mind. But the wisdom that he's acquired over how many years of coaching, and now he's able to help those personalities work together toward a common goal, a common mission, a purpose. We are going to do this together. That's what coaching, that's what leadership is. And it's if you can do that and you can bring, I'm on a soapbox. If Matt Rhule can do that, if Dylan Raiola can do that, I think the sky's the limit for Nebraska. And I think you could boil most of Nebraska's problems over the last 7 to 10 years, 15 years down to leadership, right? At the administrative level, all the way down to on the field. Yep. And I think Matt Rhule gets that. And that's why it's such a high priority for him. If they don't do it, they won't win. It doesn't matter what kind of, like you said, what kind of roster they have.
Yep.
Soapbox over.
That's simple with a 100.
In other news, Mike Ekeler returns.
He does officially.
Yep.
We talked last week about it, but it wasn't official. It was unofficial.
Yeah. Official today. I think they released salary info and all that. So
we have 3 brand new coordinators.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Be exciting.
It's incredible.
I think we mentioned this last week, or I mentioned it. I think we're in a good spot though. I think we from a resume standpoint, the coaching staff is in as good of place as it's been since I can remember. So,
feel good.
Rhule originally brought in younger guys that were, kind of up and comers, maybe a little less of a resume, but there was some promise there. Especially, we had super young coaches. And now it feels more of a Big Ten I'm not going to say they're the best coaching staff. I think that's kind of hard to
Mhm.
quantify.
Yep.
But like, it feels like we have like a Big Ten coaching staff, and this isn't just a guy bringing in his buddies. Like like we've said before, there's a sense of urgency, and that Matt Rhule wants to get it right. And he's brought in now what I feel like on paper, resume wise, is as good of a staff as I can remember being at Nebraska.
Agree.
Yeah.
Agree. The future is bright, and it is now, which is
It's,
fun to think about. All right, let's finish up with this. We started with weather. Let's end with commercials and food. I think the Super Bowl was a dud.
Oh yeah.
I was shocked. So on the way, we were going to a friend's house. On the way in the car, so I'm going around to everybody in our family and all our kids. Who are you rooting for? And then what's your score prediction? So our 5-year-old, who, he knows, he watches football and he gets how the game works, but he's like 40-0. He just shouted it out really quick. And I laugh. I go, buddy, like nobody's going to score 40 points. It's the Super Bowl. And he said 40-0 Chiefs. But when it was 24-0 Eagles at halftime, I think that's what the halftime score was. I'm looking around like, where's Isaac? Like they're going to score 40 points. Sure enough, at one point it was 40-6. Right. And to me, that's kind of in my head, that will forever be the final score, because those last 2 touchdowns, they were kind of garbage time, right? Last 8-9 minutes. And, but I was impressed by the Eagles, and I've never seen Kansas City look so pathetic with Patrick Mahomes. That's the way they just look pathetic. Props to Philly, man.
Good to see
you guys
Cam
have anything to add?
Good to see Cam Jurgens get a Super Bowl. Nick Gates, O'Shawn Mathis is on the practice squad.
Yep.
Yeah, there's an NIL pickup right there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it was one of those games where it's like, there's all these data points about Patrick Mahomes in these big games and how successful he is, but like I kind of accounted for this. I'm like, I think this Eagles roster is just insane. Like it is. Howie Roseman, what he's built there, but you just always go back, even me, I was like thinking to myself, I'm like, you've got like this really good roster, but then on the other side, you have one of the best quarterbacks of all time. It's like, what do you take? And it just turned out to be too much for the Chiefs.
It was just good football by the Eagles. We kept saying that they're just beating them at sound football. And there's the Chiefs can be gimmicky, they can be flashy. Eagles it just felt like, they're just whooping them. It was nice to see. I actually like Jalen Hurts. Saquon Barkley, the more I listened to him, liking him. So former Penn State player, but hey, he's fun.
They just seem like great teammates, right? You talk about relationships and camaraderie. Like you see those videos of Saquon talking to his teammates and coaches on the sideline. You're like, man, you just seem like a good dude. You seem like somebody I would want to play with and I would be encouraged by. So I'm happy for them. I'm not an Eagles fan by any stretch. I'm not a Chiefs fan. But I'm happy for the Eagles. So enough of the game. Favorite commercial, and then we'll get to the food thing in a minute. But I'm curious if you guys have a favorite commercial you saw. I'll go because I have one.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
You kick it off.
So I actually have 2. The Dodge commercial, the Goldilocks, the Bears, right? Guy from Twister and Maverick Top Gun. Can't remember his name. What's his name?
I don't remember.
Matter.
Yeah, Top Gun.
That was funny just because it was crazy. And then the other one was the Uber Eats Matthew McConaughey commercial. I just thought that was because they've been building toward that, right? Like football makes you hungry. Football makes you want to eat. I can't remember what their tagline is, but I enjoyed that one. So those would be my top 2.
I thought one of the clever ones. So if I go like serious, would be the Country Roads Take Me Home, and then after commercial because we need some
You would
unification.
like that one. Yep, we do.
And then after the commercial though, they go right to the stadium and they're playing the song in the stadium. I think it was a Rocket
Oh,
Mortgage
nice.
commercial. So
It was.
then the crowd is singing the song, so it was kind of a little interaction with the commercial. But the one that made me laugh the hardest, probably one of the dumber ones, was the seal. I think that was just
Oh, that was good.
Yeah,
yeah,
that was so
That was
ridiculous.
good.
hang on to the bomb, the Mountain Dew, but it was kind of shocking in the moment. Like, is that seal on a seal?
It is seal. Yeah.
It's good.
Everyone in the room said Seal needs money. That's why Seal's in that commercial. It's like, where's he been for the last 30 years?
Yeah, right. We're just now getting this one.
I actually don't pay attention to the commercials. That's such a lame take, but I was either talking to people at the house I was at, or I was looking at, sports book lines and seeing what I was very curious, during the game, this the sports book nerd of me, just kind of what Vegas was doing, adjusting odds and things like that. Cause everyone's kind of thinking the Chiefs are going to make a comeback, and it just it never happened. It was just like Andrew said, it was a butt whooping. So
the one commercial that got me, and I didn't even see all of it, was the Google Pixel commercial with the dad and his daughter. Mike, if you haven't seen it, I mean, you have a daughter.
I'll check it out.
You got to go back. Just Google that. It's basically like he's kind of, he's using the phone to, take pictures and videos of his daughter, and then as a kid, and he's kind of thinking forward to her wedding day, right? Wedding day, or just when she's an adult. And so you're like, oh man, I have two daughters. That just hits you hard. And you're like, man, they're going to grow up. So, okay, let's talk food as we wrap it up here. Food at Memorial Stadium is changing. Andrew, did you make it back for a game last year?
No, I did not.
Okay. So you were the one that brought this up because some of the local foods may be in limbo here with the new contract that the university signed with Aramark, who will do the concessions. And I think the whole point is to bring more money in, which the only way to do that is that you will have more and better options that cost more. So fans will be supplying
and
that
alcohol.
revenue and alcohol. I don't know if that might have been included in that extra 5.8 or 8.5 million that they expect to earn because of this contract. So anyway, what we know right now is Valentino's has been thanked, and they're going to ride off into the sunset. Runza has a couple more years on the contract. I am not a big Valentino's pizza at the stadium guy. I am a Runza guy. But my kids love Val's at a football game. So I want to hear your food takes. What's your, Andrew, you had some crappy purple cabbage in Seattle. What do you want to see when you go to a game at Memorial Stadium?
Well, first of all, I'm not ashamed to say I'm a all of it guy. Like Valentino's, Fairbury, and Runza.
Fair.
I mean, they're all
guys. I've never had a Fairbury hot dog.
Really?
Oh my gosh.
James. Yeah.
No.
James. What are we doing?
The price that the cost for eating a hot dog, it's like 4 bites. And I paid $5 for those 4 bites.
Okay. We're going to challenge you right now. This next season, you got to get the Fairbury. You can go to the store and buy them too. But
James, here's what we're going to do for next week. You're going to go to the store.
And you want me to eat it on the show?
You're going to eat it on the show next week. Grill them up on the grill, bring it into the room, eat it on the show.
So I can
and do
you
a,
can buy
a
them
review.
at the store.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where do you?
They're not cheap.
Red. They're the red dogs.
The red. They are bright red. You can't miss them.
You gotta get the fat. You gotta get the fat one. The Tom. I think they're called Tomboy.
So Andrew, you just let's establish something here quickly. You just complained to me and Mike that you ate purple cabbage, and it has food dye in it. I don't know if you guys know this, but hot dogs are not naturally red, right? So So how do they get to be so red?
No.
Okay, Fairbury. I'm going to look this up because I want to see, I want to find out how much so keep talking amongst yourselves as I look this up.
So yes, you can eat one on the show. However, anything at Memorial Stadium tastes unique and different, right? So the Fairbury there at the stadium, the bun is a little bit steamed, it's
Steamed up.
It's got to be, a little bit mashed, whether it was in the Wiener Schlinger, which actually know that guy, by the way, or the kids serving it in the stadium. It's got to be kind of, smashed a little bit with just some ketchup. That's kind of my way of having that one.
But you put ketchup on it?
I do. I just a little bit of ketchup. Yeah.
I'm pro ketchup as well.
Guys,
pro ketchup.
What do you put on your hot dog?
Mustard.
Well, yeah, on a brat, but not on a hot dog.
No. Mustard.
Hey, out here in Chicago, I'm standing strong on the ketchup on hot dogs. I get roasted for it every time at parties, but I'm staying strong.
Mustard, you got to pay for the dog, but the mustard and the condiments are free. So mustard, onions, relish, whatever they got in those dirty metal baskets,
right?
All that goes on except ketchup.
But when you're in the stands, you're just getting that dog. Like, you're not getting all that.
Well, yeah, they're not giving you mustard.
Yeah.
No.
So you just got to appreciate that.
I could get official hot dog of Husker Nation. You can get 10 hot dogs in a pack for $6, which is way cheaper than if you go buy one at the game, because you get one hot dog for $6.
I think next week you need to make one, put it in the bun,
I'll do it,
and wrap it in tin foil to steam. I think you just need to make it authentic.
Yeah, and I'll do it next week.
I think this needs to happen.
I'm gonna put this on the grocery list, and I will
James,
get them.
you almost got to go outside. You got to be a little bit cold too.
Yeah, next week it's gonna be pretty cold next week when we do the show. It's still gonna be bad, so it'll be steamy. But I think we should do it. We should do it.
I like it.
By the way, speaking of food, so like I think you know this, Mike. You saw this, so we might have our first show sponsor. We just need to get him on. So Matthew Morrison owns Moose's Mad Fresh. So he does guac, dips, hummus, salsas. I've had his stuff. He comes to the Lincoln Farmers Market, and I see him all the time now. See him at Costco, see him everywhere. He wants to come on, and he wants us to try his dips. We got to figure out how he's going to get them to you guys. All right.
I accept packages in the mail.
Andrew, we have to ship yours, and then it will have to ride on a ferry to get to you.
Yeah.
But we got to do this. So we'll start with the Fairbury hot dog, and we'll go from there. But Moose wants to come on the show.
I don't have any of those either. You guys are making me homesick now.
All right. Any other food takes?
On a serious note,
what?
On a serious note, I was going to say, like, I feel like the food quality is probably going to get better. I'm kind of feeling like we might get some like more fancy options, but I think we might lose some of the like traditional things that, yeah. So because like Nebraska's like food selections kind of stink. Outside, like, it's not good. Like it's Runza and Valentino's, and then everything else is just like blah, whatever. So
but
I'm wondering
like
if
when you go to a game, like if you've been to a Bears game or a Packers game,
been to Packers games, been to like Brewers and Cubs. What
do they serve? There's only so much you can do. What do you do?
I'll tell you what, man. Brewers games, actually, I feel like the Brewers have fantastic food. I love, like, they do, like, so Andrew, you'll like this, talking about brats here. They do these like super fancy brats with like all sorts of different stuff. I mean, there's like a brat station, and they're like fancied up brats with all sorts of stuff. So we always get one of those. They have like a jalapeno burger that I'm a sucker for jalapenos on anything. So I always get that. I don't like, it almost feels like more like, I wouldn't say, I don't know if restaurant quality, if that's going over the top, but it just feels like it's nicer stuff rather than like you're eating just like from a concession stand. So
Yeah, but I struggle with Nebraska. We're kind of a folksy bunch, like, and just that tradition of
We are.
being one,
Right.
you're crammed in those seats, and so you can't sit there and eat a plate of food or a massive burger of some kind. That's why it's like it's the quick grab the pizza,
Yeah.
grab the run, grab the. Now if seats change and the fan experience, as we know, is going to change a little bit, yeah, you're gonna be able to do a little more of that. But I hope they can negotiate with Val's to keep those staples, because
yeah,
we've lost the spring game, we've lost the balloons. Like,
Balloons are back.
Oh, they are back, kind of.
They came back. They came back. Yeah, for one game.
All right.
If I could have, like, I'm a simple guy when it comes to food, but when I was growing up, going to the College World Series, they had what they called, because they played, when the Royals played there, it was called the Royal Nacho. And I kid you not, like, the plate was, it was one of those plates that are like you get at a picnic, like a family picnic in the summer. It's probably a foot, one of the kind of the oval oblong plates. And it is layered and heavy. And it took you 3 innings to eat this. And you got your money's worth. And we probably paid, even back in the 90s, we probably paid, $6-7 back then for this plate of nachos, but it was worth it. And I feel like in some ways, like PBA they do that, like what you were describing, Mike, with like the kind of more, upscale foods. Like they kind of have, you can get like essentially like a Chipotle bowl at PBA. But it's like, okay, you pay $10, but like, man, if I'm going to go to Chipotle, I'm paying $9.25 for a bowl.
Yeah.
So I'm actually getting a meal, and I'm not just getting no offense, Fairbury, a hot dog with red 40 in it. Right. Like, so, for $6. So yeah, that for me, it's like, nachos, and not just like what you get at a Little League concession stand, but like, something that is going to be significant. It's going to take me a while to eat it. I'm going to feel like I'm not getting cheated out of my money when I buy it.
We talked about Shake and Nick last time, Mike. I don't know if you checked them out or not, but there is a famous bit on there, Matt Coatney. Nothing goes better with Husker sports than Fairbury. So
yeah, but Matt Coatney's a mustard only guy.
Is he really?
He is. Yep, he is. He is. He's a mustard only guy. So you guys got to get your hot dog game right. Get rid of the ketchup. So, all right. Okay. Well, we'll wrap it up there. Enough of this banter. So, all right. Well, everybody, we appreciate you listening, tuning in. Again, comment. Let us know your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you. As always, guys, good to chat. Hope you have a great weekend. Huskers play Thursday night. Go Big Red, and hopefully we're talking about a win again next week. Take care, guys.
Go Big Red.